Now, if you look at the COVID epidemic and the lessons that it has taught us, uh, our supply chains have to be resilient, number one, right? They need to be adaptable to changing situations. When you look at the end customer, I think what we owe them in terms of the perfect product or the perfect service is being it's getting possible because of the implementation of AI in processes, in systems, in services, in businesses. On the flip side, there are job losses. But then, how do we balance both? Is something that we really need to see.
Hello, this is a new episode of Cold Secrets, the podcast where we talk about cold chain distribution and pharma logistic challenges. And my name is Miguel Sirven. I'm a CEO at TrueCall, and today I'm very pleased to have with us Aparna. Hello, Aparna. How are you?
Hi, Miguel. I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad. Summer has arrived to Spain, so it's
Uh huh.
getting warm here.
That's amazing.
Well, just um, to share with the audience, let's set up the structure of this conversation. Basically, there are three main blocks. On the first one, I will run like a batch of quick questions just to know you better. And hopefully, the deal is that you should try to answer in one word or one sentence maximum. Yeah.
Okay, that's a tricky
If
one, but I'll try.
if you answer them all, you can ask me. You can also ask me anything you want. Yeah. That
Awesome.
you always have the opportunity to skip any if you don't want to answer. Yeah.
Okay.
But that's only as an icebreaker. So then we know each other a bit better. And then we deep dive into the main part of the conversation where we are discussing, as I said, in terms of pharma distribution, culture, logistics, different challenges, and so on. And last but not least, the name of the podcast is called Secrets. So I will ask you to share with us well, a secret or a challenge that you may overcome or not
Uh-huh.
during your experience. Yeah, or something that you feel proud of. How does it sound?
It sounds good, exciting. Looking forward to it.
All right. So uh, in terms of, let's start from the beginning. What's your name, Aparna?
My name is Aparna.
Uh, what's your age?
I'm 54 years old.
Okay. Which country do you live?
India.
India. Very huge. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
I prefer staying back in India. Yes. I love my
You know,
country.
Aparna, it's our fourth podcast, and
Uh-huh.
no one decided to leave or switch the location where they live. So they live, and that's their preferred place of living. So either we are getting into our podcast people who are very lucky and they live in the country which is their favorite place in the world, or
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
India is definitely the most favorite country in the world as far as I'm concerned.
okay. Are you married?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Uh, do you prefer lying on the beach or are you more a mountain person?
I'm more of a mountain person.
Okay. It's also quite, I mean, out of the four, I would say most of them or all of them, they choose the mountain. So no, the beach is decreasing on the interest.
So I
Uh,
actually spent most of my time, my formative years, my childhood in Mumbai. And basically, we have a huge beach. There are lots of beaches there in Mumbai, considering that it's a coastal city. So I've seen a lot of sea in my lifetime. Therefore, probably I crave more for the mountain life.
yeah, I,
That
I
would
would
be the
say
preference.
that would be my option too. So we are on the same page. Um, if you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what could it be?
Fish. I love seafood.
Good choice as well. Is there any book or movie that you would recommend us?
Oh, there are lots of books that I would recommend, because I am a very, very avid reader, and it is very difficult to choose any one book, from so many that I have read. But yeah, probably I would recommend War and Peace by Lev Tolstoy. That has been one of my favorites.
Good choice as well. Um, if you could have any superpower, which one would you choose?
I would love to read people's minds.
Okay, more than flying.
Yes. Interpreting what people think is so difficult nowadays because there's absolutely no correlation between what's going on in their heads and how they're actually acting things out. So I think that's really a superpower.
But you are also making a strong assumption, which is that people actually think.
That's a good one. Probably
No,
sometimes I don't. They just act
they
out of
don't.
it. That's quite
It's
possible.
a action. Yeah. Um, yeah. If you could have dinner with any historical figure, which one would it be?
That's again a good one. I think I would love to have dinner with Mahatma Gandhi.
Okay. Yeah. It's yeah. I fully agree that it's a very interesting person to. I would love to have the opportunity to speak to. And last one, if you could time travel, would you go to the future, to the past? Will you stay in the present?
I think I prefer to stay in the present. I really do not want to time travel. I have been pretty happy with the way my life has been going on, so I don't want to go back and change anything. And there's no point in traveling to the future. What's the point in living if you know exactly what is going to happen? Yeah,
Yeah,
so I'll stay in the
you can
present.
you stay in the present. You can travel to the
Yes.
future and stay in the future. You don't need to come back.
Ah, no, I want to live my life.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, so you answered them all. Very good. So congratulations. Is there any question that you would like to ask me? So then you know me also a bit better.
Also, yes, of course. Miguel, have you ever been to India?
Unfortunately, not.
Then I
Unfortunately,
think you should. It would be great to meet you in person.
absolutely. But I'm always kind of amazed by the distances in India. So it's not a trip that you can plan for 1 week. So it should be
No,
minimum 3 weeks.
absolutely. I think even 3 weeks is a short time, considering the length and breadth of the country. It's big. There are huge, there's a huge cultural diversity between the different Indian states and a whole lot of things to do and see. So you should plan a longer visit, I think.
Absolutely. And I love spicy food. So then it's
Oh, you love India then.
yeah, I will feel at home. That's absolutely.
Definitely.
Uh, yeah. So basically, we cover the first block. Um, why? Let's if you need to describe yourself and position the audience, who is Aparna and why we are interviewing Aparna.
So the thing is, True Cold is into cold chain, right? And
Yeah,
cold chain in pharma supply chain management is extremely crucial. It is complicated and it is often overlooked, right? It's an overlooked aspect of the pharmaceutical industry. I come with 30 years of work experience, and 15 years of these 30 years have been predominantly into pharma, the length and breadth of it. So I have handled processes in supply chain management, logistics, artwork operations. I have also had a stint in the commercial world. And looking at my experience, I believe that I will be able to add some value, maybe not considerable value, um, drawing from my rich experience to introduce you to certain aspects of cold chain which I think would be very, they could probably add some value to the processes of the audiences who are watching and who are interested in understanding the new technological developments that are going on in the pharmaceutical manufacturing world, as well as logistics, and how it is that we can draw from these to create a robust cold chain experience.
Mhm.
So, this is why you're talking to me, Miguel. As a person, uh, I consider myself to have some domain expertise in supply chain management. Uh, Currently, I'm working as a consultant, so I have been working with a wide spectrum of pharmaceutical companies, um, helping them with transitioning their supply chain management processes to their global capability centers in India. On a personal front, I am a very fun loving person. um, I don't have a figment of seriousness in my life. I don't even want that. And I do believe that if you add a fun element to your work, it makes it that much more tolerant.
Absolutely. So it was a great introduction, and I'm very excited to know more about your experience and the insights that you can bring on the distribution. Maybe we should start from the beginning, right?
Yes.
Is how Aparna decided to start in pharma world. It was a choice. It was just coincidence. Uh, Good luck, bad luck.
I think it was an accident, but I believe that it was a happy accident
Mhm.
because and I think everything in my life has been an accident. Maybe not so lucky in the beginning, but eventually things did work out for me. So I have done my double masters in microbiology, and for almost 6 years I was working in my own field. I started working as as a laboratory assistant in a hospital, then as a microbiologist in a poultry disease diagnostic laboratory. I was a research associate in a chemical manufacturing company. I was a lecturer for some time. Uh, but fate got me into the service industry when the medical transcription and the business process outsourcing industries were booming in the early
Mhm.
2000s. Is when I jumped onto the bandwagon, so to say, of the service industry, and then there was no looking back because the service industry actually took me places. It took me to many different countries outside India, transitioning processes, especially in the health sciences space, health insurance, so on and so forth. And I got my lucky break in 2005 when I actually moved into the pharma industry by transitioning the supply chain management process of one of the world's biggest pharma companies to the service, one of the service companies here in India. So that is how it all started.
Okay, so best thing happens by accident. So
Oh yes, absolutely. I completely believe that.
yeah, and you mentioned that well, big part of your career has been on the consulting and the service industry.
Yes,
Uh,
that is correct.
and and when you are looking at a pharma company, which are the biggest challenges that they are experiencing right now? It's about the people, it's about the culture, it's about technology.
I think it's a mix of both. So I will start off with talking about this the global capability centers in India. So now the global capability centers have evolved from the business process outsourcing that started somewhere in 2000. So way back then, it was like a service industry where processes would be transitioned piecemeal, and we were just the execution partners. But over a period of time, the BPOs evolved, and today we have global capability centers, which are kind of offshoots or extensions of the parent companies, right? And as a part of global capability centers, we are expected to take accountability of the work that we deliver, right? Now, this is an expectation. At times, the reality could be different because when you change this whole landscape, ideally, you should also be able to change your thought process. But when you have, if you're drawing in your experiences from the service industry, you continue to be an execution partner. And then the
Mm-hmm.
whole purpose of establishing a global capability center, so to say, is completely lost, right? So that is one of the challenges when it comes to people. And if you want to address this issue, which is pretty rampant across the industry, then I think we should have that thought leadership in place. People who actually think like, yes, they are the ones who are running the company. They are accountable for whatever happens, good, bad, ugly, right? They're actually passionate about delivering the service or the product or whatever it is to their end customers. And probably this is one area that needs some, I'd rather say, um, a lot of improvement. This is from the people side. From the technology perspective, I think we are getting there. India historically has been pretty strong in providing technical services.
Yeah.
And moreover, if you see with the advent of AI, there's a lot going on. Again, AI has a good as well as a not so good side. Uh, Predominantly, it is good because with the automations and things are becoming really faster. We're able to get very accurate and solutions or very speedily. And when you look at the end customer, I think what we owe them in terms of the perfect product or the perfect service is being, it's getting possible because of the implementation of AI in processes, in systems, in services, in businesses, right? On the flip side, there are job losses. But then how do we balance both is something that we really need to see.
But
Talking
at the
from
same
a,
time,
yeah,
uh,
so go
hold
ahead,
on,
please.
sorry to interrupt. It's
No, no, leave it.
about the job losses, which, well, it's partially true, but I mean that has been a recurring message for every
Yes,
revolution.
yes,
So when, I mean, for the industrial revolution, we have the same, but actually it kind of keeps on going, increasing our productivity. So I honestly believe we should not be that worried about job losses.
yeah.
It's more about, yeah, things will just work differently.
Yes, and Miguel, coming to the second part of your question, uh, the challenges that are faced by particularly the pharma companies,
Mhm.
and I'll be talking predominantly about supply chain. Number one is speed to market, right? Uh, in today's days, we have to be smart. Now, if you look at the COVID epidemic and the lessons that it has taught us, uh, our supply chains have to be resilient, number one, right? They need to be adaptable to changing situations. The geopolitical atmosphere today, it looks bleak. There are wars going on across the globe. There's so many things happening. Uh, your supply chain has to be robust enough to face these geopolitical challenges that are happening every day, right? Geopolitical challenges also give rise to rising costs.
Mhm.
Sometimes they give and these rising costs would be because you are probably hoarding a lot of inventory, right? You're not able to sell it because there are bottlenecks probably within your supply chain, right? uh, Maybe your raw material cost is very high, and when your raw material cost is high because of different supply chain challenges, then the cost of your finished goods are also going to be high, and people are not going to be
Interesting.
uh, able to afford those, right? Then there are competitors coming up every now and then. So all these challenges basically make are pushing us towards building more robust, more resilient supply chains, and I think it is possible only through aggressive standardization, aggressive simplification, and automation through AI. I think that is what is going to be the futuristic solution that we should already be adopting.
Okay, so it's about standardization, simplification through AI. That's like
Yes,
the
yes,
key message.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more in the sense of standardization, but standardization is not always easy. I mean, in terms of supply chain, mm, there are
See,
multiple systems running. Every company, they believe that they have a unique process, while actually what they do at the end of the day is not that unique. And that's something that you as a consultant, you can't realize very well because you see different companies in the same sector and all of them believe that, okay, yeah, my process is unique. How unique is really that process? It's not that much in my experience. Uh, but I'm not sure it's a matter of incentive. So how willing people are for that standardization? Do Because so far my opinion is that they there are no clear triggers uh, for aiming for for that standardization. Which are, in your opinion, the main triggers that should convince every company or every system to work in a standardized way?
see, number one, as I told you, are the rising costs.
Hmm?
So, again, I will draw from my own experience of working with a global capability center. Okay. Now, when you have established a global capability center, you you have established it with the objective of centralizing, certain processes. In my case, supply chain management. Now, when you are managing these supply chain processes, let's say for 50 different manufacturing sites that are spread across the globe, okay, you have teams that are catering to all these 50 sites, but you also have 50 different processes. What's
Yeah,
the
that's true.
point in standardizing? What's the point in centralizing? Right? They might as well sit in their own different manufacturing sites and continue what they're doing. It will be more effective. So you are centralizing processes with some objective in mind, right?
Mhm.
If your objective is not standardizing, then it defies the purpose of centralization. You may get some cost benefit here and there just because you all are sitting in one place. But the bigger picture still remains unresolved because you are still putting in your time, money, and effort in running 50 different processes. Moreover, if your ultimate goal is to automate, you cannot automate something that is non standard.
Non-standard.
Correct?
Yeah.
Right? So that has to be the first trigger point that comes to your mind. That first of all, first and foremost, I need to standardize processes, one process for all 50 countries. Well, I understand that there could be some differences here and there, considering local, rules and regulations, local requirement. That's always a 20% is always unique.
Yeah, the Pareto rule,
20%,
aim to standardize the
20%
80.
standardized, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So that is probably one of the biggest triggers that should prompt you to standardize your processes. I would also mention another thing here. That when you look at huge pharma companies, they have different functions, right? Now, if you
Mhm.
talk about supply chain, for example, you have master data management teams, you have artwork operations teams, you have teams who are doing order management, forecasting, you have teams that are doing like the overall program or project management end to end, people who are looking at launches, changes, mergers, acquisitions, divestments, pruning, name it, all these functions are there. But what I have seen is all these different functions work in silos. Now, many
Mhm.
a time, talking about a supply chain, the output of one process is the input for another. And if these outputs and inputs do not match, you have a huge communication gap and there is a process failure. Correct? And when you have these kind of process failures, it adds on to the delay that keeps on getting woven into your supply chain, the whole process. And
Yeah, delays
ultimately, who
accumulating.
is the one who's going to suffer? It is your end customer, the patient, if you are running a pharma company. And then there are stock out situations, people not getting life saving drugs on time, right? Because of these kind of issues, there could be errors cropping up, right? And due to errors, there could be recalls. And recall is something that you really do not want because it harms your reputation. Again, there are stock out situations, and there's so many. It's a logistic nightmare, right? So if you have standardized processes, plus if you have a proper linkage between all your different disparate groups within your supply chain, then I think most of your problems should ideally get solved.
Yeah, exactly. That's a situation that we often see, which is that now AI is quite trendy. So
Yes.
almost every single company is talking about AI. But as you rightly mentioned, there is a prerequisite for AI implementation, which is having a proper data set. And what do I
Yes.
mean by a proper data set? It's it's having, first of all, it's having the data,
Yeah.
having enough data, which is something different. And the data, so once we have data, the data in terms of quantity, it's enough, it needs to be standardized so that we are calling the same way one concept. So there are no 50 different ways of calling the same process because otherwise the AI cannot understand what we are doing.
Yes.
And I often see companies that they are trying to jump into the wave of AI by implementing very fashion and trendy things where actually they don't have a robust foundation on their processes and data systems in order to capture the information in a centralized way. Um, Even in the pharma industry, we still see a lot of planning done in Excel,
Yes.
controls that uh, talking specifically about cold chain.
Yes.
Uh, it's data loggers are assigned to shipments in a piece of paper that's signed by the operator. So there is no a solid foundation to implement this extra AI layer because the foundation is just not good enough.
Absolutely. And there's one more thing that I would like to mention here, and that is the people aspect. Why do you think that we do not have this strong foundation of AI or understanding of the underlying technology, and what is it that is actually required to adopt AI effectively? Now, we all know that data and technology are the eyes, ears, brains, everything of the modern supply chain.
Mhm.
But one thing that is stopping us is the pushback that we get from different teams. Right now, traditionally speaking, um, leaders feel that if they have huge teams, means they have a lot of power. Right? They have authority. uh, Obviously, when you are going to deploy automation or AI in your processes, your team size is going to shrink, right? Uh, you need to unlearn and relearn, and all this takes some mental effort and the ability to let go, and that
Mhm.
doesn't come easy. Change, moreover, even if it is for the better, usually meets with a lot of resistance from people. And sometimes I believe that it is easy to change processes, um, deploy technology, but it is very difficult to change the mindset of people. And that is another big problem that, we are facing today.
Yeah. Well, that's all about change management, which is a key challenge, especially in big organizations, because, well, change management, when you're running a lean startup, that's easy. In one day, you implement it. But if you're talking about a big corporation, 1,000 people, multiple departments, everyone working in silos, as you rightly mentioned before, that they don't necessarily know or get direct communication with each other, and everyone is kind or trying to protect their own ecosystem and the people that they manage and their own budgets.
Yes.
Uh, but okay, here maybe we can have a short intro to what can be the solution for this working in silos. Is because when we a long time ago, I studied about project management, and one of the alternatives they gave for that was working in a matrix system, or
Yes.
creating cross-functional teams. Is that something really working based on your experience?
See, one of the things, or a couple of things that can definitely work. Number one is, uh, as you said, working in a metrics driven organization where each person is actually accountable for the final delivery. Okay, not for their own, little siloed part of the delivery. Okay. Second thing is there needs to be tiered accountability, where there is accountability at each tier, right from the grassroots level to the person who is sitting at the pinnacle of the pyramid. So every person needs to be made accountable, right? And probably there should be a single thread that joins all the different siloed functions, right? So, if let's say, for example, I am taking care of artwork operations,
Uh-huh.
my accountability should not end by ensuring that, okay, my finished artwork, right,
Is
ready to
done.
print artwork has gone from my department, I'm done with it. No, because for me, the overall supply chain is my customer, right? Because the artwork or the package does not go separately as an individual entity to the end customer, it goes as the part of a package, right? So, somewhere I need to be made accountable for the final delivery of the finished product rather than just the artwork. And this kind of accountability is missing. People don't even know each other's businesses, how they are linked. How is master data management linked to artwork operations? And how the errors made by the master data team are affecting artwork operations and vice versa,
Yeah.
right? So we need to have that bird's eye view on the one hand. And so you need to be able to zoom out and zoom in. And that is an ability, the capability that each person needs to have. And when you give accountability, okay, you also need to give them give them credit for things that go well as they need to be held responsible for things that do not go well.
Yeah.
So it
How to
goes hand
manage the
in hand.
failure.
Yes, yes,
That's
absolutely, yes.
that's probably one of the things that better define a company is how the company manage the failure, because managing the success is pretty easy. Everyone manage
Exactly.
quite
So,
good.
in my opinion, uh, you should, probably, and again, um, you should also question if you're successful. Okay, why are you successful? Is it accidental, or is there a method to the madness? Because it's very easy to celebrate success, but really, nobody deeps dive into the details of why am I successful, and probably that will give you the answers to how to manage your failures.
Yeah, absolutely. Aparna, if we jump or deep dive into more specific topic about pharma distribution, I would like to make a zoom in cold chain distribution, which is a crucial part of the biological and pharma logistics. And we have been discussing about the challenges in terms of technology, people, operations, work
Yes.
structure, and so on. And honestly, what I see is that technology, not as a challenge, but an opportunity um, to simplify. I mean, we are humans, and if we rely on human behaviors, everyone will have a different culture, different ways of working, different ways of doing. But if we rely on technology, technology is not diverse. I mean, an iPhone is an iPhone everywhere in the world, or my Lenovo computer is exactly the same, or 99% the same everywhere in the world.
Yes.
Um, so in terms of cold chain, a significant improvement is the way that we capture the information. Before I was referencing to operators writing in a piece of paper the name, this is the that data logger associated to this shipment.
Yeah.
What's the impact of IoT devices and IoT connected devices for this temperature, real-time temperature tracking? Do you see it as an opportunity? Well, if
Yes.
I can share my opinion, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm convinced that IoT is the best way to simplify the data capture, because then we don't rely on human behaviors, human procedures. It's just captured by a machine. So then there is no failure possible. It's just
Absolutely.
timestamps and recorded.
Yeah. So, so basically, as I very clearly said, uh, data and technology are the eyes, ears, and brains of supply chain, and they are definitely the eyes, ears, and brains of the modern cold chain as well. Now, one of the IoT devices that comes to mind are the data loggers, right? And these data loggers are small, but they are like these mighty devices that are really the unsung heroes that have transformed the supply chain or the cold chain by enabling, constant monitoring of temperature, monitoring of humidity, light exposure, even shock or vibration, in case if there is any kind of mishandling that is detected, then air pressure, even GPS location, and these devices do it throughout the journey of a pharmaceutical product, you know and by means of this, they are providing a continuous, verifiable record. They are compact electronic devices. They're typically small, portable, battery powered. And because of all this, it makes them extremely ideal for placement inside shipping containers or refrigerated trucks or storage facilities, so on and so forth. Moreover, they also contain these built-in sensors, right?
Mhm.
Or they can be connected to external sensors, whatever is the case, to measure these various parameters. So I would say, gone are the days of relying solely on manual checks at specific checkpoints. In fact, today's advanced data loggers are programmed to take measurements at regular predetermined intervals. For example, every 10 minutes or every half an hour, every hour, whatever it is. And they provide this granular data that is collected. It is stored in the data logger's internal memory. uh, and in fact, this memory is often non-volatile, meaning that the data is retained even if the battery dies, and it can be analyzed to obtain detailed, extremely accurate insights, which play a very, very crucial part in alerting stakeholders in case there are any deviations of, let's say, temperature or humidity outside the acceptable range, identifying, any potential temperature excursions, enabling proactive intervention, and thus offering this irrefutable proof of product integrity, which is so very crucial for regulatory compliance, for quality assurance in case there is any kind of dispute that needs to be resolved. And the insights gained from these data loggers can also be effectively used to optimize cold chain processes, improve packaging, identify inefficiencies, if any, within your system. So I believe data loggers, uh, if you consider that as a part of the IoT devices, are uh, very, very important today, and I think they are like the uh, underpinning mechanism of your technological advancement as far as cold chain is concerned.
Yeah, I mean, I see them as the way of automating data capture, because
Yes,
that's the best foundation that we may have. Because then when we have an automated data capture, then we can build a lot on top of that. I mean, the data logger by itself will not make any quality judgment, will not say anything, will
yeah,
not. Uh, but then if we combine the measures, the automatic and systematic and standardized measures taken by the IoT devices, we combine them with the context and the knowledge of a quality person on the thermostability data of the product, the different origins and destinations of the shipments, the people that needs to be
yes,
involved, the carriers which are taking care of the transport. Then, if we are able to combine all those variables, that's where the magic happens. And then
yes,
all the stakeholders are connected to each other real time with accurate information which is traceable, which is fitting the best regulatory standards in terms of compliance, security, etc., and makes you, which is also quite important, audit ready. Like when you get an audit, here you have.
yes.
It's uh, yeah. Um, you mentioned before also in terms of cold chain packaging. Has been a lot of well, there are different evolutions in terms of cold chain packaging. Um, which one do you feel? For instance, a few weeks ago, I was talking with a London, UK based startup that they are creating like small packaging boxes, and the way that they isolate the box is with plums.
Okay.
And well, they seem to be running pretty good business. It's well, I wouldn't say it's innovative because plums has been there for decades. But yeah, it's an interesting use case, which is recyclable. It's organic material. We are not creating extra waste. Um, which is the most common packaging, for instance, in India? I mean, do you have any specific packaging solutions that fits to the specific uh, environmental environment in India? Because that's also
Oh yes,
different.
absolutely. So definitely there are a lot of solutions available. But Miguel, what I feel is that when it comes to packaging processes, you know, they are pretty much the foundational elements of cold chain, right? Considering the
Hmm.
sheer volume, the variety and global movement of your temperature sensitive drugs. So, which is where, you know, your standardization and simplification of packaging processes become so very important. Um, to be very honest, it would be an extremely chaotic environment if, and it is, if your packages are not standardized and they're not streamlined. And when it comes to standardization of packages specifically for cold chains, um, we are talking about consistent container sizes. We are talking about validated insulation material. We are talking about very clearly interpreted, internationally compliant labeling, right? And this labeling process has to adhere to regulations across the globe, across the countries where your product is getting marketed, right? And if you're able to achieve this, this would not only reduce the risk of errors manifold, especially during handling and transporting your material, but it will also simplify the training processes for personnel across different stages of the supply chain. Because when you're talking about a logistics process, imagine there are so many handoffs, right?
Hmm.
There are so many logistic service providers that are involved, right? And it's not straight. It's a very complicated web of logistics providers. And if your packages do not meet the requirements of the products that are inside in terms of uh, uh, maintaining the temperature, humidity, whatever the product requires,
Mhm.
imagine what is going to happen. Imagine
Yeah,
a world where each and every vaccine or each and every medicine requires like a unique handling protocol. It would be a logistical nightmare. Therefore, ultimately, when you talk about standardization of packages, you're talking about, or you're referring to efficiency, waste reduction, and ultimately safeguarding the efficacy of the medication.
absolutely. Uh, Probably there is one topic that I would like to touch with you. I'm not sure how familiar will you be, but it's about the risk associated with the cybersecurity. Because
Yes.
all the technology improvements, like the one some that we mentioned, AI, IoT, cloud service providers, etc., they are, I mean, there are obvious benefits of using them, but they also have some associated risk, like cybersecurity, meaning if you get the
Absolutely.
data in a piece of if you get the if you get the data in a piece of paper, there is no cyber attack that can extract the data from. But however, if you are relying on service providers, cybersecurity.
Yeah. So
How? Yeah, please.
so the thing is, when you're talking about data loggers, when you're talking about data twins, when you're talking about IoT sensors, and there's so many things that we deploy, all these things are actually collecting and generating a whole lot of sensitive data. And this data is getting transmitted across your cold chain. And when we are handling so much of data, okay, your cold chain becomes the prime target for cyber attacks. And therefore, the more connectivity you have, the more data that you are handling that is going, traveling across the length and breadth of your cold chain, then there is a huge or a significant responsibility that comes into play, the responsibility of safeguarding the entire process from cybersecurity risks. Now imagine if there is a breach, right,
Mm.
and your temperature data is, let's say, compromised. The consequences could be catastrophic in nature,
Yeah,
right?
even if nothing really happened, that's
Yeah,
the whole point. Even if the
absolutely.
logistic process was completely fine, there was no deviation.
Yeah.
As far as the data flow does not come along with the logistic execution, then we are talking about cold chain. But the same could apply for serialization, aggregation, etc. So even
Absolutely.
even if something was smooth, the shipment was completely fine, if the data flow is not secure, then basically the product becomes useless.
Yeah, because the entire integrity of your process is lost.
It's compromised. Yeah,
It's compromised. And that's the reason why we need to remain vigilant in addressing the growing security risks that actually come hand in hand with this entire digital transformation.
exactly. It's all connected, Aparna, indeed.
Absolutely, it's all connected. Yeah.
Is there any specific topic that you would like to share with us that
I
we
would.
missed?
I actually would, because see, there are a couple of aspects of cold chain that I would like to talk about, because I have some experience there. So
Please.
one of them is this the specialized autologous medications like cell and gene therapy, which involve the transportation of the patient's own cells that are used as the starting material for the therapeutic product. Now, this process involves the collection of specific cells or tissues from the patient who has been identified as the recipient of the therapy, transporting these cells or tissues to a specialized manufacturing facility where new gene therapy components are introduced into them, After the processing is completed, the modified cells are then infused back into the same patient from whom they were originally collected. Then another upcoming therapy area in the pharma world is radioligand therapy or RLT. Now, the
Mhm.
RLT supply chain is pretty specialized considering the fact that it deals with radioactive substances which have a half life. And once they are activated, they have a very short lifespan. So, as an example, if the half life of an RLT medicine is about 72 hours, then the entire supply chain needs to be accommodated within a time span of 48 hours. The end to end logistics process, right from cell collection to reinfusion of autologous and radioactive products, is incredibly complex and often requires a robust cold chain. So, this is what I wanted to,
Wow.
point out.
No, those are key points. I was not aware about the criticity and the short duration of those supply chain. Yeah. And are there, that's out of curiosity, Aparna, do you know if there are specific or more resilient or faster logistics or specialized logistics operation for these kind of therapies?
Yes, there are, and the pretty much the application of cold chain technologies in these areas is definitely being adopted, and this is probably where we can also, look at different areas, because here again, uh, ensuring that the link between the manufacturing plant and patient, it remains unbroken by maintaining precise temperatures across the length and breadth of the supply chain is not just good practice, but it's a matter of life and death, right?
Yeah.
So the need to maintain integrity of temperature sensitive medications like these is where your standardization, technology, vigilance, they all play an extremely critical role, right? If you need to revolutionize the pharma cold chain, especially in these areas, because these are upcoming technologies and they are being adopted, very fast across the globe.
Interesting. Well, then we should continue the conversation and deep dive in those kind of therapies and how can we help them to make more robust and ensure that basically there are no delays because there is no room for failure. There is no buffer in terms of timing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, so let's jump to the last but not least part of the session, called secrets. Um, do you have in mind any challenge or any interesting situation that you would like to share with us?
So, number one, as I said, Miguel, are these upcoming therapy areas where we are
Uh-huh.
actually dealing with the patient's blood, the patient's own cells, right? And if something goes wrong within the cold chain, right, we cannot keep going back to the patient to draw more and more blood. So I think this is where cold chain logistics processes and the application of technology would be of paramount importance, is what I feel. And the second thing would be speed to market, especially when you're talking about life saving drugs. And if there is any kind of a compromise across the cold chain and we have to recall the product, then we are actually not doing justice to people who are relying on our products as life saving medicines for them. That is number one. That is number two. Sorry.
No. Very, very interesting, Aparna. Yeah, I think that we can finish the conversation here. It was a great pleasure sharing this, well, almost 1 hour with you.
Yes.
Uh, so yeah, thank you for sharing the insights of all your different career and your background in terms of pharma distribution, specialized in cold chain. And we also spent quite some time in terms of process management, change management, and because at the end of the day, technology processes is good, but we all are people, and it's people who run them all, either technology or processes. So yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you
It was,
again.
thank you,
Yeah.
Miguel. It was a pleasure talking to you. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, hopefully will not be the last one. Keep in touch,
Yes,
Aparna.
yes, we will be for sure. Thank you so
Take
much.
care.
Bye bye.
Bye.